I thought, you know what we need to do? We need to help local businesses. So think about this for a second. I'm like, we got to help local businesses. And what am I going to do? I'm going to take $15,000 of my own money and I'm going to pay for free advertising for local businesses. This is great. I have a video that's online. I saw it a couple of days ago. I was laughing. Now, you would think if you're giving away, so just fill out this information. I'm going to give you the ability to get free advertising so we can keep your company open. How many people do you think we had that answered? Spirituality and capitalism belong together. Those thoughts, those feelings, that comes from something bigger than I am. And together I believe we can all grow. That's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to change the planet.
Well, I want to deep dive into that and your back history in a bit. But first, let's talk about what Spiritual Capitalist is, what this podcast is going to be about, and who people are going to hear from.
Yeah, so the goal of Spiritual Capitalist is to figure out the best way to merge spirituality, which is something that's a core in my heart, and it's a core to a lot of people's hearts, and capitalism. Now, people think, well, they don't belong together, right? Like if you're going to be spiritual, you can't be wealthy. And if you're going to be a capitalist, well, you can't be spiritual. They don't work together. And so to me, it's showing the world that spirituality and capitalism belong together. It's that vision, it's that mission, it's that passion to tie the two of them together because they actually work together. That inspiration that comes from inside, internally, those thoughts, those feelings, that comes from something bigger than I am. And then we have to take the 3D world, right, which is where kind of capitalism exists, and we have to shift that as well because capitalism, for a lot, we've got big business that's destroying human beings and using them as numbers and so on. And so we've got a lot of people that are starting businesses, have businesses or billion-dollar companies, and it's always sharing with them, listen, like your people matter. The vision of your business matters. The impact you're making in the planet matters. And so it's the impact that ties all those things together.
Why did you want to do this podcast and who do you want to interview every week?
Oh, man. So I think I really wanted to do the podcast because, one, I truly love people. I just love people. I don't care if I'm in Uber. I'm gonna interview them. I'm gonna talk to them. I just love it. If I'm talking to a business owner, I want to talk to them, and I'm always curious to find out what I can learn. Right? I'm a curious person, and so I'm like, you know what? What would be fun is to interview my friends, to interview experts, to interview thought leaders, to take the time and energy to study on a subject, and then just talk on that one subject for the week. So we're going to have a combination of things. The goal here is to talk about spirituality with the body, right? So the wealth of the body. We're going to be talking about the spirituality in, well, just spirituality, right? So all kinds of different thought leaders, spiritual leaders that have their own concepts, ideas that our audience can look at and take pieces from them. They don't have to make it them. If they're, you're Christian. Okay, great. I can take things that I can learn from you and I can apply them to my life. I might have someone sit there next week that's Muslim. Well, I can learn from them. So we don't have to be, this or that. We can learn from each other. And then the other side of it is the business side. There's a lot of people that, that I'm involved with all the time, mentors, and I pay a lot of money for coaches. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important. And so I want to be able to share those lessons, those experiences with other people. I want to highlight other people that are doing good things in the world. So people that are actual experts, not saying I'm an expert or I'm a guru or whatever, but actual experts like yourself that can help people. Like here's good people to surround yourself with. And I am lucky, I am blessed to have those people around me. And so I want to amplify their message. I want to amplify who they are. And together I believe we can all grow. That's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to change the planet. But if we focus on the body, the spirit, the mind, right, personal development, because it's who you become through that journey. And then in the end, if we can combine those things with spirituality, we've got a well-rounded individual.
As a publicist, I can tell the audience that you struggled for a while in actually getting out there and in front of your brand because
Sure.
You like to be behind the scenes. You like to have these connections, but you don't like to get out there and look at me kind of mentality, which you don't. But I know that's a struggle for a lot of people. Why were you inspired at this point to finally understand the importance of getting out there and talking about your experience?
So I've talked about this a few times. There's a gentleman named, one of our founders, Ryan Adele. He said, "Listen, you have a message. You have a different way of seeing the world. You just need to get out there. Like you've got to get out there and help other people. Like people have helped you. You get to get out there and help other people." And I said, "Okay, like that's not something I really want to do. I don't want people to know who I am. I don't care about people knowing who I am. I want to be able to walk into a coffee shop and say hello, and nobody knows who I am except for the people that want to know who I am, right?" So I've always said, I don't care what you call me a founder, call me a janitor. But I realize also kind of the fallacy in that. And that is that if someone's not standing for something or falling for everything. And eventually I met a gentleman named William Lamb, and we were working through some work, and he's like, "Listen, Dalton, like, let me show you some things." And so we did some work together. And eventually what I had learned through all that was, you know what I really want to do is my goal is to become a billionaire. And that's like, well, that's a big goal. But the goal wasn't about the finances. The goal wasn't about having a bunch of cars and houses and boats and whatever. Like I like nice things, but I don't really care about nice things, if that makes sense. Meaning it's not the driving factor. But I'm watching the way that the world is shifting and changing. And I realize the only thing that we have in this world, no matter what, is ourselves, our brand, like who we are. And so for a long time, I would just sit, behind the scenes and not let people really know who I was. And I thought, you know what? Like if I'm going to make change in this world, people have to know who you are. They have to know your story. They have to know your background. They have to trust you. They have to like you. If they're going to do business with you, if you're going to want to make any kind of big change. So during the pandemic, this is a perfect example. During the pandemic, sitting in, at the time, is sitting in like this little apartment. And at that point, I thought, you know what we need to do? We need to help local businesses. So think about this for a second. I'm like, we got to help local businesses. And what am I going to do? I'm going to take $15,000 of my own money and I'm going to pay for free advertising for local businesses. This is great. I have a video that's online. I saw it a couple of days ago. I was laughing. Now, you would think if you're giving away, so just fill out this information. I'm going to give you the ability to get free advertising so we can keep your company open. Yeah. How many people do you think we had that answered?
0?
Pretty close.
Wow.
We had like one person that had a daycare. So think about this, during the pandemic, you can't actually run a daycare. Right. And then we had someone that had a petting zoo. So I realized in that moment in time, it's like, great, you can want to do all the good you want to do in this world. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have reach, you have nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, well, I get to create reach because what if something really important is happening in the world? What if there's someone that really could change people's lives? Like, what if there's something big we need to do? What if we can figure out, how to solve addiction? What if we can figure out a way to solve homelessness? What if we have someone that like needs something? If you have no reach, you have nothing. And everything's being taken away right now from a lot of people, from like Instagram and Facebook. And if you don't say the right things, you don't do the right things, if you're not around the right people, then all of a sudden now you're shut off. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I guess I got to do this. So, put on my big boy pants and decided to sit down and create this brand and worked with people to create it. Originally, it was the Dalton Locke podcast. I thought, I'll talk about my journey and my experiences, and we'll go over shadow work, and we'll talk about psychedelics, and we'll talk about AI, and we'll talk about all these things, which we do here as well. And I realized that had to be bigger than me. It had to be something I believed in and something that I really believed in. So I was working with one of the producers from, he's from the gentleman that created, trying to think of the name of it right now. It is the largest YouTube channel on the planet, Mr. Beast. Oh, yes. And as I was talking to him, I said, he's like, what are you? Now, usually I tell people I'm kind of a spiritual hippie. I'm not really a hippie, but my beliefs are kind of hippie-ish, right? But for some reason, in that very moment, I said, I'm like a spiritual capitalist. He's like, that's the name. He's like, it's not Dalton Locke. It's a spiritual capitalist.
I love it.
And so then it started over a course of a year. Mm-hmm. And also while I was drinking medicine last year, actually almost a year and a half ago now, in Costa Rica, I was shown that it's about using that reach to do good. Mm-hmm. And so if you have the ability to do it, why would you not do it? Stop being afraid and just put yourself out there and see what happens.